Next, they get into Mary's room, which is this famous thought experiment originally proposed by Frank Jackson. I don't think that Sean even engaged with this in any meaningful way.
Yeah. But there are philosophers of mind who don't just want to say science hasn't explained consciousness yet, but that it in principle cannot do so. It seems to occupy a different kind of space. Thomas Nagel is the sort of famous name here that I think most succinctly puts this case in what is it like to be a bat. And one useful way of getting at this is with a famous thought experiment that I've heard you speak about before, but I had a question about your interpretation or response to this. Famously, Mary's room. I talk about this all the time on the show. Uh, and most people are familiar. You know, Mary is in a room, it's totally black and white. She experiences no color for all of her life, but she is given every single piece of information that could possibly be written down onto a piece of paper and understood and like comprehended by her. Uh, she's given that and she becomes an expert. She learns about the wavelengths of light. She learns about the biology of the eye and the brain chemistry and all of that kind of stuff. But she's never seen blue. And then at the end of her life, she steps outside, she looks up, she sees the blue sky. And the question is, does she learn something new? And the implicit answer is yes, she learns something new. She learns what it's like to see blue. And whatever that extra thing is that she's learned is what consciousness is. Now, I've heard you talk about this before, and I just want to give you space to respond to that. And then I've got a follow-up question if your answer remains the same as it did when I last heard you speak about this. So what do you think about that?
I'm a little bit thrown off my game because it's always red that she's never seen, and you're making it blue, and
I,
I'm not quite sure how to change gears so quickly, Alex. So let me give it a try. And I think there's
well,
different. I have one opinion, but there's different ways of stating it. So
mhm.
let me state it this way. Mary's room, even though Frank Jackson, who popularized the thought experiment, has repudiated the conclusion that it is used to draw, many other people still stick with it. I get
I
that.
did not know that.
Yeah, oh no, he's totally a physicalist now.
Wow, really? Do you know why? Like, was there like
Because
a
it's a bad argument. I can explain why I think it's a bad argument. I cannot
yeah,
promise I
sure,
can
sure.
explain why he changed his mind
Okay.
about it. But look, it's supposed to be refutation or repudiation. I was mixing up those two words together of physicalism. It's supposed to be, you're supposed to reach the conclusion that physicalism can't be true. Okay. Well, what is the physicalist saying about what's happening to Mary, the color scientist, in her room? He's saying that when she's in her room and everything is black and white and she's reading all the books on color theory and getting all of these pieces of information, she's learning things. And what that means to the physicalist is there are certain connections between certain neurons in her brain that are firing and strengthening so that when you ask her questions, she can answer them, et cetera, et cetera. A usual physicalist, reductionist account of what it means to be learning those things. Then she steps outside. Blue light wavelength photons impinge on her retina for the first time, and she sees the color blue. What happens to the physicalist? Different neurons fire in her brain, and different synapses are strengthened. No one disagrees with that. And now she says, "Oh, now I know what it's like to see and experience the color blue." Where in the world is there any problem with that? Like, where is the refutation of physicalism? The physicalist explains this with 100% fidelity. There's nothing
So,
missing.
so he needs to just go from the neurons to the experience. Go
Right.
ahead and do that. That's the
Right.
problem.
Not only that, I mean, that is the problem in a nutshell. But I mean, look, he's just saying it's physical because everything's physical. And so the firing of neurons is a physical happening, and therefore it's all physical, but it's completely avoiding the substance of the knowledge argument. Look, I would formulate it like this: Mary's room shows that there are certain aspects or features of color perception that are not reducible to physicalist language. The physicalist language is the language of mathematics. If it is true that anything is not reducible to it, then reductive physicalism is necessarily false. Okay. I mean, and he's just completely ignoring this whole aspect. He's like, I don't see a problem. I don't see a
Right,
problem.
right. I mean, again, like this assertion that, well, when she learns all the things, like that learning, or when she sees the blue, all that is the neuron patterns firing or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Like that needs to be explained.
Right.
Like that you need to go from the neurons firing to this assertion you're making that just is the qualitative experience. And this is of course, I don't know what his answer to that would be. It'd probably be like, we just don't understand it yet, or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
it is pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, but look, there is a correlation between qualitative subjective experience and neurons firing, with the qualitative subjective experience, in this case being the experience of blue. This correlation is unexpected because the properties associated with both concepts are disparate. They're not the same. This correlation is unexpected. This needs to be explained. It's not explained by just saying, I don't see the problem. It's all physical.